want to thank the SENS group for inviting me. I'm here from Chicago, and my topic of my presentation is Olympic level biomechanics, the future of anti-aging medicine. Here we have a photograph right here of a patient's feet, and as you can see, the feet, it looks like a young a boy with weak ankles. In fact, that this is something that we kind of look over. We don't really pay a lot of attention to. We really don't know how to correct that. And unfortunately, when a patient is presenting with that kind of physical presentation, every step that the patient takes creates additional aging to the body. So when we're trying to find a level of fitness where we're trying to improve muscle tone and circulation and overall health and well-being by exercising, either by walking or running, certain biomechanics presentations, even subtle abnormal biomechanics, can accelerate the aging process during exercise rather than decelerate the aging of the human body. So when we look at, for instance, we've had the unfortunate death of Michael Jackson, whose initial problem started with the use of painkillers and culminated into this sickness that eventually took his life. Well, in 2004, the use of prescription drugs to kill pain actually was overcome by, in other words, has more people addicted to prescription drugs for simple biomechanical problems, and more people have died from the use of prescription drugs for simple pain than actually street drugs such as heroin, morphine, and other drugs like cocaine. So we have a real major problem in the medical community right now, and that is, not only do we have this problem with management of chronic pain with medications that are not getting better, but they're getting, well, how would we say, more powerful, and patients are taking them for granted, and they're ending their life early. But we're also having an epidemic of obesity that is causing additional loads on the human frame, which puts additional stresses and strains on the body, and causing wear and tear and release of inflammation and all the different aging effects of high levels of inflammation. Not only that, but we are also having to fend off a new generation of children. In the United States, for instance, 30% of our children are overweight or obese. And I don't see really anything being done about that to reduce it. And it was interesting, I was in the airport one time and I was visiting with a Harvard professor, and we were just chatting about it. We said, well, if you want to focus on what is causing a lot of our human diseases, we have to look at the money trail. And a lot of you are scientists, and I appreciate these lectures that you're giving, but in my daily activity as a doctor, what I'm dealing with on a daily basis is overweight patients that really don't have answers to why they have chronic pain, or why the doctor can't find an answer to why these problems are not healing, why they're constantly taking medications for problems that are easily treated. So we're going to discover some interesting new approaches that I have developed that have been turning these cases around where other methods have not been able to do so. If we just trace the simple aging and pain back, sort of like a Sherlock Holmes, we know that we have pain and accelerated aging come from silent and painful inflammation. When I talk about silent inflammation, arthritic inflammation, I'm speaking of a lady who, for instance, was at a conference, medical conference, and there was an exhibit there, and she said, well, I'm drinking this youth juice, or this cocktail of anti-inflammatory juices, and it's tremendous for anti-inflammation and so on and so forth. And I said, well, she was walking about, and I said, well, are you drinking it regularly? And she said, yes, I am. And I said, well, what if I was to tell you that your right side of your body is full of inflammation and your left side of your body is not so inflamed? And she said, well, I drink this juice and it goes throughout my entire body. But when she walked up to me, she walked with her foot like this, rolling over the entire mechanism of the spring mechanism of the foot. And then she said, well, I'll test your hypothesis. And I felt the back of her calf and the tibialis posterior muscle, the muscle that actually controls the spring mechanism. And the pain was so incredible that she let out a scream, and my God, it's so painful, while the other side of the body was not painful, and the level of inflammation she was not even aware of. So in a sense, that her entire one side of her body was terribly inflamed, yet she had no knowledge of it. It was just because of some simple mechanical dysfunction in her spring mechanism. So, you know, sometimes we are looking for some very, you know, scientific points on what ages our body when it's right in front of us. When we watch the patient walk in, for instance, I was working with an entertainment group, and I did not know that this gentleman, who's a very famous entertainer all over the world, he's been to almost 100 doctors, and he told his group, he said, you know what, the chronic pain, the inflammation, the fibromyalgia, the fatigue, and the pain that I'm going through is taking me out of the group. I want to quit, and I'm not going to entertain children anymore. I just want to go home. He's tried 60, 70 different doctors with different approaches. And what had happened was, when he went in with his back pain, the doctor typically would set him down on the table, or the nurse, and the doctor will be right with you. A series of reflex testing, some orthopedic tests while he's on the table, stand, bend this way, bend that way. The doctor ordered an MRI scan and walked out the door. And all the information that was necessary to cure this man's chronic pain and inflammation existed as he walked out the door. In other words, when he walked up to me, I could see a very vivid toe out of his right foot. And I looked at him and I said, you know, how long have you had these aches and pains on the right side, cracking knees, hip pain, and, you know, all these other problems, chronic problems? And he said, you know what, I've paid a fortune for people to misdiagnose me, and you've looked at me in 3 seconds and you know exactly what's wrong with me, and I haven't even opened my mouth yet. You see, when we do a gait analysis, what we're going to find is we're going to find the defects in the biomechanics that is causing the accelerated aging. And when I look at the patient, I'm looking at a standpoint of this red section right here. It's just a chart that I developed, very simple for patient education. This red area is an area of pain. It's a pain that the patient feels. Their back hurts, hip, their knee, whatever hurts. This area here, the yellow area, corresponds to that silent pain, silent arthritic inflammation, or that inflammation of that lady's entire one side that she was unaware of. You know, it's subtle, abnormal biomechanics of the human body that bring out the stress and strain, cause abnormal wear and tear, and release of this cytokines inflammation. So the gap of knowledge that is necessary for us to fill is this gap which comes from the gait analysis. And what happens with the spring mechanisms? So coaches in the highest level, the Olympic level, understand, in fact, in 1965, Yuri Veroshansky developed this method of training called spring training, or plyometrics. And the Russians trained their athletes with this spring methods, or jump training, for years. And you know what the results were? They stole all the gold medals. And what happened was that increased human performance was based upon using the spring mechanisms of the body to get energy and quickness and movement without using muscular strength. Muscular strength takes energy away from our bodies, and therefore we're not able to run as far, we're not able to get as much speed and spring out of our body. So the current if you were an Olympic coach and want to improve performance, you would do jump and